Welcome to Rhythms of Access, the podcast exploring the intersection of disability, creativity, and art. We bring you candid conversations with disabled artists and cultural workers who are redefining the landscape through their practice, advocacy, and vision. This episode is brought to you by Blurring the Boundaries and in the Canadian Accessible Musical Instruments Network, with support from the SSHRC grant, which is the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Today's guest is Michael Carter, a teacher, disability activist, and musician whose work bridges performance, education, and identity. Michael holds degrees in jazz performance from Brandon University and the University of Toronto, as well as a degree in education from York University. As a disabled person, his teaching and advocacy are deeply rooted in supporting disabled students as they build positive disability identities. And before becoming a learning support teacher in Lethbridge, Alberta, Michael spent 7 years teaching instrumental music in Manitoba and Ontario, blending technical mastery with a commitment to inclusive and affirming spaces. Wow, Michael, welcome.
Thanks.
I feel
Glad
like
to,
you're like a man who doesn't need an introduction.
well, I think you added the last few words of that biography, so it made it even better.
Awesome. It's so good to see you, man. I think it's been like a few months since I last met you in person.
Yeah, I think that was the start of May.
Yeah. And you've been quite busy in Ontario, networking and such. And yeah,
Mhm.
how has that been for you?
Yeah, I spent from September of last year until June of this year just kind of networking and connecting with other disabled musicians and disabled arts organizations in Toronto. And
Yeah.
it's a great experience. The kind of the reception I got was so warm from everybody, and
Um,
I really felt maybe for the first time like I was part of a disability community. We use
hmm,
that term so often, but I think it's a hard thing to find in most places. So
hmm.
I was lucky in Toronto to be able to connect with people where I really felt like I was part of disability community.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Wow, that's really cool. And now you're back home in Alberta?
Back home in Alberta.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, Michael, before we get started, I usually like to do a little icebreaker with my guests, just for people to get to know you up close and personal a little bit. So if you could humor me, for just 2 minutes, if that's all right.
Sure, sounds good.
All right. So, what is one access-related hack that's made your music or teaching life better?
One
What's one
access.
access hack that's made your music and teaching life better?
I think I'll talk about my own music life.
Okay.
One access hack that's made my own music life better is getting over some of the internalized ableism that had me thinking that I have to perform in the same way as non-disabled people. So for
Ooh.
instance, I'm a saxophone player. So jazz saxophone players typically always stand when they play. But because of my cerebral palsy, standing means that sometimes I feel like I'm spending a large amount of my energy on balance rather than what I'm performing. So giving myself permission to sit while I perform, it's a
Hmm.
really small thing. It's been really big for me because it means I can focus on what I'm playing rather than how I'm standing.
Ooh. Love
Yeah.
that. I love
Hmm.
that. Okay.
And to be
And
honest, I'm still kind of working on it. There's
yeah.
situations where the kind of expectations are really strong, and I still feel like I need to try to live up to a non-disabled kind of expectation. Yeah.
So can we sit on that for a second? Like, what was the catalyst for you? Like, what was the turning point? Like, what happened? Tell me. Like, yeah.
I think it's been a really long process, like a long process of me getting more comfortable with my own disabled identity,
Mm-hmm.
my own long process of facilitating the same kind of access affordances to others, but maybe not giving myself those same
Ooh.
affordances.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been a long road, and I'm still not there. I think we're all still battling our own internalized ableism battles, but um, I think also for me came a realization that, well, I want to perform as best I can. How can I do that? And if
Mm-hmm.
that's succeeded, then why not? Right.
Mm.
Um, the reality is that sometimes I think we think other people care more than they actually do about
Ooh.
about
That
the ways we present ourselves to the world.
that couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
You know, as you're explaining to me, how you play your sax and, like battling between like, standing up and being seated and what worked best for you, it actually reminded me of a conversation that I've had with Ken about, because I'm a singer, right?
Hmm.
And when I perform, I also like to be looking as quote unquote normal as possible, right?
Yeah.
So I want you for a second to pay attention to how my voice sounds like this, right? If I
Hmm.
lift my head up like this, does the tone sound different and the clarity, does that change?
It does. It sounds a bit different.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I would sing, for me, it looked awkward that every time that I'm singing, and for me to get the best tone as possible, I need to position my head backwards. I
Hmm.
always felt a little bit self-conscious about that, that like, who
Oh,
wants to see a guy singing with their head leaning back like this? But
yeah.
it produced the best results.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that experience
Hmm.
for sure.
Huh. So, Mike, can you take us back to the moment music first became a central part of your life? Like influences
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah.
I mean, I've been playing music since I was about 5. I started on
Wow.
piano, and then
Okay.
when I was about 11, I started playing saxophone. And along
Mm,
with starting playing, I really did a lot of listening. So at a really young age, I was really influenced by some great tenor saxophonists in particular. Like
mm-hmm.
my early influences that still are important for me are saxophonists like Joe Henderson. He's
Okay.
one of the important ones for me. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I just, you know what it's like when you listen to music that you listen to over and over and over and over when you were like 12,
Yeah.
and it sort of brings you back to that experience when you listen to it again years later.
Mm,
So that music was, I don't know, it was a really important maybe escape for me, or maybe just a
mm,
really joyful solitary experience, or an experience where I really got to focus on sound, because as an older person now I realize how important sound is to my experience of the world around me. I really
yeah.
pay attention to sound. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so music's always been like, for instance, you know how a lot of people like to listen to music while they work?
Yeah.
while they read. I can't do
Yeah.
that because music
Interesting.
takes up way too much of my focus. I'm listening to the
Hmm.
music, I'm hearing what's going on. I can't listen
Right.
to music while I'm working because that's
Because you're
too much.
listening to all the details.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
really taking it in. So, yeah.
Interesting.
And I
So
kept on
like what
playing music and now 30 years later, still lots of music in my life.
wow. So were any of your family members musical or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my both my parents like played recreationally, and did,
Okay.
my dad played clarinet and my mom
Okay.
piano, and they both took lessons as kids. And yeah,
Okay.
so there were instruments in my house. Like there was always a piano in my house, and there was a
Okay.
clarinet in my house that I eventually learned after I started learning saxophone. And yeah. Mhm.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you've lived in the worlds of both performance and education. Tell me how do these roles feed into each other for you?
Hmm.
Like, how do you balance the artistry side with the discipline of like education or teaching?
Yeah. Um, well, early in my career, I guess they were really well connected because I was an instrumental music teacher. So I got to make music alongside students regularly.
Mhm.
Um, and if I'm being honest, I enjoy my current job more. Um,
Hmm.
and I still use those same kind of ways of thinking about music in my job. I'm an
Yeah.
improviser, and I
Yeah.
think my abilities as an improviser help me to see the world as constantly showing itself to us instead of
Hmm.
some predetermined thing that we need to stroll along with. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
it makes me more flexible to change. It makes
Hmm.
me more kind of explorative in terms of the way I
Yeah.
approach my interactions with others, in terms
Yeah.
of uh, how I help students kind of access that kind of
Hmm.
creativity, whether that's just in their interactions with other people or when they're
Hmm.
doing a writing project or whatever else they're doing. So I think
Yeah.
my identity as an improviser does really impact all the work I do. It
Hmm.
feels really connected.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. And how does disability identity shape your teaching approach?
That's a really important part of what I do. So when I first got this job that I hold right now,
Hmm.
it was a job that was typically thought of as, you're helping disabled people kind of do fill gaps in their skills or do better in
Hmm.
more of a fixing people sort of approach. And
Okay.
I didn't want to align myself with that fixing approach because that fixing approach really aligns with the medical model of disability. And
Hmm.
as disabled people, we've experienced so much of that way of looking at disability as an individual's
Hmm.
problem. So when I approached my work with disabled people in schools, I wanted to turn that around so that we could identify disability as a site of something we could be proud of, something we
Mm.
um, could identify with, and it would be something positive.
Hmm.
Um, so how I went about that, I guess in so many ways, but a few would be just trying to take the focus off those individual deficits
Hmm.
towards the ways that the world works that disadvantage disabled people and
Hmm.
helping everybody understand that. so we could shift everyone's understanding of disability from an individual deficit to something society is responsible for. And then just by modeling and by helping others see themselves positively as
Yeah.
really complex people with lots of different interests. Our disabilities are just one facet of a lot of um, different parts of our lives.
Hmm. So, as an educator in music, specifically students with disabilities, what tools or approaches, I should say, have you found most powerful? Like, are there any adaptations in classroom and rehearsal settings, or even like teaching strategies that integrate accessibility in there?
Mhm. This is a common question, and it's a common
Mm-hmm.
question from teachers, from lots of different folks. And I understand the question as a willing, or it's people want to know what they could do to better include a student into an existing framework.
They want
And
the playbook.
right. And when I get approached with this question, I always try to back it up a bit because
Mm-hmm.
I think as teachers and as people, we're always looking for kind of, okay, what can I do to fix this now?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than looking back at, okay, can I be honest about what my attitudes are towards students with disabilities who are entering my classroom? And
Mm-hmm.
can I look at the way even I receive
Mm-hmm.
students in the room and how that impacts everyone's perception of disabled people? Or, you know, because I think one of the main points I always try to get across is that it's not so much about the specific strategies that we're using. It's about really trying to change our fundamental outlook on on people, because I think the question, well, what can I do better to include someone with disabilities in my class? That
Mm-hmm.
question, that can be coming from a really good place. It also can be coming from a place that is assuming that disabled
Mm-hmm.
people don't necessarily belong in the first place.
Ooh.
Because if you're asking, well, what can I do? I'm not doing enough to make this person kind of fit in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think that presupposes the idea that maybe they don't belong in the first place, or we have to do special add-on things to make things more
Mm-hmm.
accessible. And I'd rather get away from this idea of thinking about add-on things and additional, you know, ways we can tweak
Yeah.
our 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 current situations to allow for
Mm-hmm.
disabled people to enter. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of
Mm-hmm.
doing that, I want people to completely rethink their environments so that we can imagine disabled people at the center of those environments, not at the
Mm-hmm.
edges that we need to make tweaks to let them in just outside those edges or just inside those edges. But what can we do to get them to the middle? Because I think we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to attitudes and when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to just our own responsibilities as humans to recognize that diversity is a really good thing, and that
Mm-hmm.
people, especially when we're talking about things like public education, people belong.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
a range of people belong in a classroom, and we need to start with that understanding. We need to imagine those people, a diverse group of people inside the bounds of that classroom, especially disabled people. And then once we've really formulated that new idea of what a classroom looks like, then we can talk about things like, okay, what are some strategies I can do to make this classroom even better for everyone?
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Hmm.
So in general, like answering the question quickly, I would just say, well, create a really welcoming, inclusive environment,
Hmm.
right? And that will allow for a lot of people to participate, and it will also improve the perception of disability amongst non-disabled people
Mhm.
too. Um, yeah.
Hmm. So like create a space of inclusion and create a space that is normalized.
Hmm. Yeah, where
That
diversity is normalized, where disability is normalized. So it's not
Hmm.
this thing that we're thinking about, oh, how do we add this in? But imagine it
Hmm.
as always being there, as always important, as something that we value.
Hmm. Hmm. I guess just like the way we value like other identities other than disability, right? Like whether it's gender, whether it's
For sure.
race, whether it's yeah.
And of course, disability, it's not a perfect analogy to those other identity categories, because
Mm,
there are like impairments that do impact our bodies. Um,
mhm,
and I think that we need to recognize that. I think that primarily, though, we need to create environments that are much more inclusive before we even go into, okay, what can I do to support somebody's access needs related to their individual impairment?
mhm,
I think
mhm,
that should come much later. I don't think it should
mm,
be the primary consideration, because I think if it's the
yeah,
primary consideration, it once again brings us back to the medical model of disability, which tells us that, well, this person is broken. How do we
yeah,
fix them? Right.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you've spoken about supporting disabled students in developing positive disability identities. What does that actually mean in practice? You kind of touched upon this a little bit a moment ago. Do you want to build on that? Like explain how representation, language, and community could shape self-perception.
Yeah. So I think what it looks like in practice, one big thing is destigmatizing the word disability. In,
Ooh.
in education environments, disabled is, and to call someone disabled student or disabled person, we're, even though we use that term comfortably and people in
Mhm,
disability organizations use that term comfortably, within the education system and a lot of the kind of social services kind of organizations in this country,
mhm,
person with a disability is still by far the preferred term. And
mhm.
we even still use words like special needs and
I know.
differently abled, these words
Yeah.
that as far as I'm concerned, are just euphemisms. So the first step, I think, is just normalizing the word disability as not
Mhm,
a bad word. Like it's just
mhm.
a,
It
it's an
just is.
experience. It's
Yeah.
it's an identity. It's something we can even be proud of. And because I think what it does when we avoid talking about disability, we avoid recognizing even our disabled ancestors, right? Their histories get
Mm,
erased because we decide not to talk about disability. So, first step in creating an environment where we can support positive disability identities is
mhm,
to talk about disability, the word,
mhm,
openly and not as something to be ashamed of.
mm,
Um, and then once we do that, that changes the whole environment, because then other people start to recognize that, oh, disability isn't something we have to shy away from. We don't have to avert our gaze. right?
Yeah.
We don't have
Yeah.
to close our mouth and not say anything. Because what all those
Mm,
things do is that makes people feel isolated. It makes people feel shame. And you
mm,
can't build positive disability identity if you're living in an environment where the people around you don't even want to ask you a question, or if they're afraid
mm,
to approach you, or all those things
yeah.
that
Yeah.
disabled people have to deal with in a lot of situations.
Hmm. I'm gonna go a little bit off on a tangent here, if you do
Sure.
allow me. If you don't, that's
Of
okay
course.
too. So you're a father,
I am.
and you have kids who are able-bodied.
Mhm.
How has that conversation of disability identity come through? Like, how did it become like a natural part of conversation? How did you navigate that as they're
Hmm.
going through different stages of their lives?
Yeah. It's been amazing to raise three daughters.
Hmm.
They're still in like grade school, and as they've developed, their kind of curiosities around disability have changed. I remember
Hmm.
usually like the first 3 years of their lives or so, they don't even recognize a difference necessarily. It's just that.
Hmm.
And then they start to notice signals from other places, like maybe they notice someone staring or someone trying not to stare, and
Yeah.
then they
Yeah.
recognize, oh, dad's a little different, okay. And
Hmm.
then I would get the question, oh, why do you walk differently, dad, right? And I
Hmm.
would just explain to them, I have a disability and it makes me walk differently. It's just
Yeah.
the way I was born. And
Yeah.
so that's their understanding to begin with. And they have to navigate that conversation with some of their friends too, because their friends will ask,
Hmm. Yeah.
oh, what's wrong with your dad's legs, right?
Yeah.
And so they've become kind of little knowledgeable humans about disability, and their
Yeah.
ability to help other people understand disability too. Um,
Yeah.
because they're not shy around disabled people like a lot of kids are shy around disabled
Right.
people, um,
Yeah.
because they're used to seeing me, and they're used to seeing me around other disabled people, and
Hmm.
they're used to hearing me talk about disability all the time, because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's what I do, so I bring the work home all the time, of course. um, they they just see it as something that's a natural part of their lives.
Hmm.
I'm just their dad, and I'm disabled.
Hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Thank
I
you
think it's also
for.
built a lot of empathy for them too, in terms of
Hmm.
seeing the how other people might be disadvantaged by the way the world sees them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's built that kind of empathy for them as well.
Hmm. Interesting. Thank you
Mhm.
for allowing me to go on that little tangent.
No problem.
So, in both music and education, you've been quite a strong voice for disability rights. How do you approach advocacy in these spaces? Um, like perhaps you can share like some of your
Mhm.
experiences pushing for accessible, programs and performance venues or what have you,
Mhm.
and maybe talks about why representation matters, right? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, representation matters a lot. And um, in the teaching profession, for instance, our teachers, there's more and more teachers who identify as disabled, but there's not too many teachers who are visibly disabled in school buildings.
Mm,
So it's definitely something that needs to continue to improve.
Mm-hmm.
As an educator, the ways that I go about advocacy are mostly around like professional learning. So I deliver like
Mm.
talks to groups of teachers and
Okay.
help them understand things like the social model of disability. And I help them understand things like, uh, you know, the ways in which the world disables disabled people. Um,
Yeah.
and then as a musician, I think in the last year, I've really kind of opened up to new possibilities for making music alongside other disabled people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been something that's been really important for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because as musicians, I don't know what your experience is, but my experience as a musician has been that I'm almost always the only disabled person on the bandstand.
Yes.
Um,
Same here.
right. And in those situations, we find ourselves, or at least I found myself, trying to kind of live up to non-disabled expectations around music
Mm.
performance. So, people would of course understand that I have a disability because my mobility impairment is
Mm-hmm.
not something I can hide.
Mm-hmm.
But I also I don't remember getting any questions from anybody else around, oh, what do you need? Or kind of it was more just a kind of an ignored reality in,
Mm-hmm.
in the music performance area. And
Mm-hmm.
playing alongside other disabled musicians in the last year has really opened up conversations for us around those realities of the music, of performing music. Um,
Yeah.
just all of the ways that we um, still hold on to a lot of internalized ableism, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the ways that it's difficult as disabled people to stage our bodies because of the ways that our bodies are perceived by the world. you know
Mm-hmm.
um, it's on the one hand like we're engaged in music because music is so important, but presenting music to the world also means
Yeah.
you're presenting your disabled body to the world. And
Mm.
that is something that I guess in my case, at least, it's been tricky because, um, you know, it's been a lifelong project of working
Mm-hmm.
at kind of working at my own positive disabled identity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And working at my own ability to uh, stage my body as a disabled person and feel okay.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm. Interesting.
for sure. Yeah.
So, Micah, you worked in different provinces. You've
Mhm.
worked in different communities. How do you see your role in building inclusive arts and education spaces? So I can
Mhm.
talk a little bit even about like some of the collaborations with other educators and artists, and perhaps maybe some highlights that you want to
Yeah.
include in there.
If I think about my role broadly, what I want people to really always remember and anchor their thinking in is the experiences of the most marginalized disabled people.
Hmm.
I think as our awareness of disability grows and we hear from a lot more disabled people rather than non-disabled people on behalf of disabled people,
Hmm.
of course that's a great thing. But what I'm noticing, and I think that we all can notice, is that the voices and experiences of the most marginalized disabled people are
Hmm.
still the ones that are not being heard, are
Hmm.
still the ones that are silenced and not particularly valued.
Hmm.
So in education settings, I think we need to really pour more efforts into the experiences of helping to to increase the participation of and value students and people with more profound disabilities.
Hmm.
Um, I recognize as an educated white guy with a mobility disability that's visible, but the impacts on my daily living
Hmm.
activities aren't necessarily that great.
Hmm.
I have a lot of privilege as a teacher, as someone who can navigate a lot of different spaces, um,
Hmm.
like academic spaces and things like that.
Hmm.
I recognize that I need to help others, not in understanding my own experience better,
Yeah.
but in really investing in the experience of those people that we're not hearing from. Um, so we often hear of kind of inspirational stories of disabled people, um, and we like to look for those positive examples. Um, those positive examples often, not always, are those disabled people that are easiest to kind of fit into the current structures rather than
Hmm.
those disabled people that whose lived experiences is quite challenging for a
Yeah.
normal environment to accommodate. Um,
Hmm.
so I want to see more opportunities for a range of disabled people, including
Hmm.
people with more severe impairments. Um,
Hmm.
and that's what I'm going to keep on working on. And that's what I'm going to keep on reminding people of. Um, yeah, I think we talked a bit when we talked before about um, how the disability community is growing, and that's a good thing. How,
Hmm.
more people are taking up the
The
responsibility
identity. Yeah.
of speaking on behalf and as disabled people. Um, as we're doing that, though, we need to not forget about the people that are the most marginalized.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And knowing that there's a lot of barriers ahead for a person with a disability who is an artist, what would you say to them if they're thinking about taking on the path that you've taken in education, or simply just taking the path of performing arts, right?
Yeah,
Um, what would you, yeah, what would you tell them, and where would you tell them to start as well?
yeah. When I think about my own experience as a young musician, the one
Hmm.
thing that I really wished that I had sought out
Hmm.
was a disabled mentor, uh,
Hmm.
like an older disabled musician who
Hmm.
could have just shown me what it looks like to be a disabled person performing
Hmm.
music. Um, and I think that could have been really powerful. So I guess what I would recommend that someone do is um, seek out seek out some people like you that have done this sort of thing before. Um,
Hmm.
don't be afraid to just reach out and email or cold call and say,
Yeah.
"Hi, I'm doing this." Because the reality is, if I receive an email from a young musician or a young disabled teacher,
Yeah.
I'm going to want to help them make their way. I want
Hmm.
I'm going to want to help them see that there's a place for them doing this.
Hmm.
Um, I think that if we can form those connections,
Yeah.
we can make lives better for the next generation of musicians and educators that are coming up. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, because I mean, having spent the year in Toronto and connecting with so many other disabled people, I felt so
Hmm.
lucky and so kind of full of joy to have had all those experiences and to hear from
Hmm.
all those
Hmm.
people and just to be able to relate to all their experiences in a way that just felt so personal.
Yeah.
And but I'm 41. I would want
Mm.
for a young person to have that kind of experience earlier in their life so that they can just be happy about having a connection to a person that's like them, that and
Yeah.
so they can see what the future could look like. Because I
Mm.
never really saw people like me on stage playing
Mm.
saxophone or even like me as teachers. So I
Mm.
felt like I was sort of charting a new path, but I
Yeah.
wasn't. There's lots of people before me that did these things. So we just need to make those connections.
Mm.
And I think those connections will, as disabled people, I think that's so important that we find each other and support
Yeah.
each other and cheer on each other and help each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. What's next for you? What's on the horizon?
What's next for me? So
Yeah.
I'm starting a PhD in education at the
Okay.
at this university that I'm sitting on right now, the University of Lethbridge. So I'm
Hmm.
gonna just kind of do what I've been doing, but within the framework of another degree, whether that's a smart
Okay.
idea or not. Uh, so I'm gonna just keep on doing my disability studies and education stuff and my kind of disability and music performance stuff, bringing people together
Yeah.
and but then putting a kind of a scholar hat on occasionally and uh, but really with the same goal in mind to help
Yeah.
other people understand kind of what the future for disabled people can look like. Because I think that we're living in a tumultuous time where we need to take advantage of opportunities to show the world what
Hmm.
what things could look like positively for disabled people in particular.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we don't, then I'm afraid that our experiences will once again be diminished. Yeah.
Ain't that true?
Mhm.
Ain't that true? Wow. Michael, thank you for making the time.
Yeah.
This has
Next
been
time
a
we
long
meet, we
time.
should play together.
Absolutely. I am
Yeah.
so down for that. I
Yeah.
am so
Good.
down for that. I really love that. I really, really, really love that.
I'll let you know.
Um,
Hopefully, you don't move before the next time I come to Toronto.
Hopefully not, but maybe to give you a reason to come further east.
True. That could work too. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Michael, where can people reach you? How can they follow you, your work?
I'm not as connected as most people are probably. Um,
That's okay.
but you can find me, well, if you're ever in Lethbridge, Alberta, you can find me playing occasionally. You can
Okay.
find me teaching. Yeah, you can send me an email if you're a
Yeah.
aspiring musician or a teacher with cerebral palsy, reach
Yeah.
out, or with any disability. Um, yeah, I think that it's important for us to.
And you're also a very Googleable guy too, so
I
people
guess so.
can
I got
Google
these
you.
curls, so check out the images. You can probably find me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your story, your music, and just your commitment to shaping positive disability identities. You're one of the few people who are showing how creativity and teaching and advocacy can actually work in harmony to open doors for the next generation of educators, the next generation of artists with disabilities. So
Mhm.
thank you for that and for sharing the insights. It's been it's been fun talking to you. I always enjoy engaging in these talks with you, and there's never enough time, but I think this makes space for more time in the future.
For sure. And thanks so
Uh,
much for hosting this podcast. I think these conversations are so important. And
mhm.
it's also really good for people like me to have different questions and have to explain things in different ways to different audiences. So thanks so much. It's important work.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you, thank you. Everyone, thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation inspired you to think about, the power of music and education as tools for cultural change. Please follow Michael Carter's work and look for his curls when you're looking through Google, and you'll find his contact information available there. And please join us again for more episodes with Rhythm of Access, where we actually spotlight the creators transforming our creative world one sound at a time. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you in the next time. Bye.